Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, with your host, Zaki Baruti. And like always, I want to give a shout out to my biological family, what's going on, to the Universal African Peoples Organization family, what's happening, and to the New Life Evangelistic Center family. Keep up the great work led by Reverend Rice. On that note, we'll have another great show, and in studio with me is none other than a great soldier and colleague who's been out here in the battlefront, on the battlefield, that is, for the liberation of us as a people. And I'm speaking none other than Brother Omaliye Yeshitela, who is the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right. Great. Brother Omaliye, for our listening audience, I always like for them to have a little peep as to who my guest is. Right. So can you tell us a little bit background of who you are?
Well, just a little bit. I mean, I was born in the South, down in Florida, and made the mistake as a young man of assuming that I could get away from the kinds of prejudices and things like that our people were experiencing. That was, pretty widely broadcast in the South during the 1950s and 60s. By joining the U.S. military. So at the age of 18, just turned 18, I joined the U.S. military. And from the very beginning, it became clear to me that the U.S. military was not a solution, was not free from the very same kinds of oppressions that I was trying to run from. I ended up in Berlin, Germany, where I was there when the wall went up in Berlin. I left Berlin, came back to Fort Benning, Georgia, and in Fort Benning began a process of struggle because it was the South and Africans in the military and otherwise were really experiencing terror. Africans who were on the military base, they would leave and often be blooded, beaten up by cops and what have you. So I began a process of agitation. And that
was during that real heavy Jim Crow period of time.
Real heavy Jim Crow time. And the Civil Rights Movement, I should say, was blazing at this very moment. Not Albany, Georgia, the big throwdown in Albany. The king went into Albany and what have you. People got brutally, beaten and what have you. I was in the U.S. military at that time, but I was in the process of pushing my way out. So finally, we came to an agreement, the military and I, that I shouldn't be there. They put me on a truck, armed guard, and escorted me off the post. I left there and for a couple of months went back into St. Petersburg, Florida. And then I would, actually, it's really interesting because I tried working first with the NAACP, and I couldn't hang with that because it was all pretense. And by that, what I mean is that they would have these this pretext of protesting like segregation and what have you, and it was a real joke. They'd march around this particular movie theater, they'd march in a circle and go up to the window, and the person said, "We're not going to allow you to come in," and then they'd smile and they'd go around and around and this kind of stuff. It was more done for the media than actually trying to present a real strength from the community to make some kind of point. Then I attempted, I had a meeting with the Nation of Islam because I was really impressed by Malcolm X at the time. He had, and I had heard of Malcolm even when I was in Berlin, Germany. So I tried that and had a contradiction with the local ministers and members. Just made it impossible for that to happen. So I joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that was extremely active in the South, Mississippi, and they were heroic in stature. They were young people who went into Mississippi and Alabama and places like that, very dangerous places where the SCLC often wouldn't even go into these areas. And not only did they go in, but they lived with the people and organized the people. And so I joined SNCC. And I was a member of SNCC at the time when the Black Power demand was put forth in Mississippi, and became a strong advocate, Black Power advocate.
You were affiliated with Brother Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Stokely, Willie Ricks, Cleve Sellers, the whole slew of forces. In 1966, December 29th, I think it was, we had been protesting in St. Petersburg, Florida, about an 8 by 10 foot mural that was hanging inside City Hall on the wall of City Hall that represented a kind of caricature of our people, of black people, with could have come from Ku Klux Klan literature.
And this was at the City Hall
right
in St. Petersburg.
In the center of seat of power in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
And, these cartoonish figures with huge pink lips over the face and distended arms and things like that. And we had protested it, and this Jewish mayor told us that we had to learn how to be less sensitive, etc. So we led a march down there on December 29th, 1966, and I snatched the mural off the wall. And finally, in this process, I was arrested, jailed, charged with 11 different offenses.
For snatching a mural that depicted black people in a very negative manner.
Yeah,
Okay.
they sentenced me ultimately to 5 years in prison for that act. So that was December. Something like a little more than 4 months later, the Black Panther Party went into Alameda County, not Alameda County, but to Sacramento at the state assembly and with the guns, had that demonstration. We marched from the Panther office in St. Petersburg. Why I say it was a Panther office is because SNCC is the organization that organized the Lowndes County Freedom Organization that was called Black Panther Party. So the Black Panther was a symbol that we had begun to use even before Huey and those folk did that. And at our office in St. Petersburg, Florida, huge Panther was on the front. And so we marched from that office down to the City Hall. I ended up snatching the mural down. Like I said, was charged with 11 offenses and ultimately sentenced to 5 years in prison. A little more than 4 months later, the Black Panthers went into the state assembly, into the state office, and with the display of guns, and that's where they became notoriously famous.
Absolutely. And we'll continue that story, but we'll have to take our first break.
I want to thank God for each and every one of you that are supporting NLEC TV, the work of the New Life Evangelistic Center, and making it all possible so we can have conversations with Zaki on the air along with the other programming that's on NLEC TV. Not only we discover that at 24.2, but I actually watch it on my cell phone at a very special app that we have of NLEC TV, and you can just pull it up. It's so easy that everybody can watch it anywhere. So wherever I travel, I can be watching this program and other programs. Now, all this is possible only because of caring people like you that are sharing those much-needed tax-deductible gifts at this time with the New Life Evangelistic Center. We have a lot of things that are unfolding at this moment. We're continuing to help multitudes of people, not only throughout Mid-America, but as far away as India and Africa and other locations around the world. And we really do need your help. After they closed down 1411 Locust, we're continuing to help the homeless directly out on the streets every week. We're out in the mayor's window distributing bus tickets and other direct supplies. We have regular events out in front of 1411 Locust, and we're working actually through the legal, the mediation, the advocacy, and getting prayer warriors to pray that we can reopen 1411 Locust in the near future. But we need your involvement at this particular moment. And your gifts to the New Life Evangelistic Center make such a big difference. You can send that to P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri, that's 63166, or you can give online through the PayPal system at newlifeevangelisticcenter.org or NLEC STL. I ask you to continue to stand with us right now as we continue to bring many programs like Conversation with Zaki to you, but we need your help.
If you can't receive NLEC TV on channel 24.2 on your TV, you can watch us on your home computer or laptop, anywhere in the world. Simply type in NLEC TV Then select NLEC TV Support and click on the small NLEC TV on the right of the menu bar. Click on the play indicator to start the live programming, the same programming as 24.2. You can then enlarge the picture and enjoy your favorite programs like the NLEC Worship with Larry Rice, The Bernie Hayes Show, Experience the Benefits of Change with Pastor Burris, Conversations with Zaki Baruti, News and Views, and so much more.
Can you hear the music of creation?
NLEC TV is also available on all mobile devices such as smartphones and iPads. By getting the NLEC TV app, you can enjoy NLEC TV anywhere you go.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti. I'm here with comrade, brother Omaliye Yeshitela, chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. And you were giving your background as to your involvement in the movement. You want to continue?
Yeah, that's a bit of it. And I organized, I went to prison from that. And I was in and out of prison because I would be bonded out on appeal bond. I was given a 5-year sentence, but I got out on appeal bond and was still organizing throughout the state of Florida. In fact, the whole Black Power movement in the state of Florida and much of the South was a response to the tearing down the mural and the organizing we were doing in SNCC in that area. So then, while I was locked up, SNCC was under huge assault everywhere. They were arresting people in Tennessee. They arrested Africans in Philadelphia. They said SNCC had bombs that we were planning to plant in different places. And so SNCC was really under assault. And while in prison, I organized JOMO, the Hunter Militant Organization. It's based on the sort of same kinds of principles without any intent to do that. But we took what was people called a SNCC uniform. SNCC didn't have a uniform, but it was common wearing denim jackets, denim pants, and what have you. And so we took that, added combat boosted berets and stuff like that. And JOMO was the organization that we created. And we were a very effective organization, especially in Florida. And then in Kentucky, parts of Kentucky, we organized in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, and we were in and out of Tennessee. And then in 1972, it became clear that the era of protest politics as such was over, that it wasn't enough just to be protesting, that there had to be an end. To what end are we protesting? And we believed that it was absolutely necessary for us to look at the seizure of political power and wielding political power. And for that, we determined that the political party was the best instrument to do that. And after a process, we went through a particular kind of process, and 3 organizations based in Florida came together and we created the African People's Socialist Party on May 25th, 1972, which was the time of the first ALD mobilization that happened.
And for our audience, ADL.
ALD, the African Liberation Day. African Liberation Day, which was something that was declared in 1963, May 25th, 1963, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where the Organization of African Unity, and that's a whole different story, came together, and they determined that that day, May 25th, would be characterized as a day of African liberation.
So you were formed in 1972. Now, what are the basic principles of the African People's Socialist Party, so people are clear, and if anybody may want to join?
Surely. I just want to say that the first thing is that we recognize that we are part of a single dispersed nation of African people, that you can't get on a ship in 1619 as an African in Africa and then get off in Jamestown, Virginia as a Negro. That if we were Africans when we got on the ship in Africa, we were Africans when we got off. So we are Africans, first of all, not an African people, not descendants of Africa. Everybody's a descendant of African. We are Africans. And so, 1, 2, that we recognize the fundamental contradiction that exists in the whole world, in fact, is the contradiction between oppressed and oppressor nations. That we live in a world where 80% of the people on the planet try to survive of $10 or less a day. 50% try to survive of $2.50 or less. And if you're in Africa, you're lucky if you get $1 a day. That's the world that we live in. And that's due to colonialism. How Europe came out of Europe and initiated this process of enslaving us, which is the foundation of the whole capitalist system, the enslavement of black people, the dispersal of Africans around the world. So we've been struggling since that time. We've been fighting against that colonialism. And that colonialism, that capture of Africa and African people and the colonization of other people, including the indigenous peoples and what we refer to now as the Americas, was a startup capital. That's where capitalism has its origin. And that's why Africans and Indians, so-called Indians, Mexicans, and nobody else benefits from capitalism in the final. I mean, you may know 3 people who do, but generally speaking, as peoples, Africans don't anywhere, and Asians for the most part, except you see the emergence now, forces like China, that's an entirely different story, Japan, etc. So we are engaged in a national liberation struggle, and that includes black people all over the planet Earth. And so our mission ultimately is the total, absolute liberation of Africa, all 12 million square miles of Africa, African wealth, African resources, and what have you, and the unification of Africa and African people around the world. So we are part of that, and we see ourselves in the United States as the U.S. front of the African Revolution, but we also see the work we do in South Africa as the South African front of the African Revolution. So we are fighting on all these different fronts for the liberation of Africa, the total return of all our resources, et cetera, and the destruction of a capitalist system that was born of slavery and colonialism.
So to that end, to educate our people, we don't have to take a break, but I want a clear definition of capitalism and as an extension of that imperialism through the eyes of the African People's Socialist Party.
Splendid.
We're going to take this break.
It's the gifts of caring people like you that help keep the Zaki Baruti Show on the air, dealing with hard issues that we must begin to recognize in our community, issues that are frequently ignored by much of the existing media. And St. Louis and the St. Louis area is a community that's famous for its Jim Crow policies of keeping the people down by elevating the rich and the powerful. I want to encourage you to get a copy of the book Through the Fire as you share your gift of $10 or more to help keep Zaki's program on the air and directly help the hurting and the homeless. This book goes into great detail of how the bigotry and the self-centeredness of the rich and powerful it was implemented through the politicians to drive the homeless out of the area by shutting down the work of New Life Evangelistic Center. But the work isn't shut down. It's moving forth in many other different locations. It's moved out on the streets among the people, and it's working to get back into 1411 Locust, all of which is made possible through the prayers and gifts of caring individuals like you. And that's why your gift is so very important at this time. And as you share that gift with New Life Evangelistic Center of $10 or more at P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri 63166, be sure you request your copy of Through the Fire. Yes, God is moving in a mighty way. New Life Evangelistic Center has not given up in spite of all the persecution. It's given it to God, and we're seeing Him now do exceedingly abundantly beyond what we can even ask or think. I ask you to continue to pray for us at the New Life Evangelistic Center as we're working to continue to bring you community programming like the Zaki Baruti Show and are out on the streets among the homeless, working among the homeless, distributing bus tickets every week and emergency supplies for them, opening up safe houses for the homeless, women and children, expanding training programs for the homeless. All of it is possible because of each one of you that is sharing that much-needed gift now with New Life Evangelistic Center. So when you send your gift of $10 or more, please request a copy of Through the Fire. It's P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 63166.
Hear this, you who trample the needy and do away with the poor of the land. Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. You trample on the poor and force him to give you grain. Therefore, though you have built stone mansions, you will not live in them. Though you have planted lush vineyards, you will not drink their wine. For I know how many are your offenses and how great your sins. You oppress the righteous and take bribes, and you deprive the poor of justice in the courts.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and in studio with me, Omaliye Yeshitela, chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. On the other side of the break, we were talking about capitalism. I want you to be clear to define capitalism and imperialism, and we're talking about the struggle of African people.
Yes.
Is there room for other people, say whites in this country, to be part of the struggle?
There are rooms for whites in this country and every place around the world, but they have to abandon this relationship that they have to imperialist white power. The truth of the matter is that capitalism was born as a world system, and that was the origin of global white power, was the founding of capitalism, which came through slavery and colonialism.
So you're defining capitalism as exactly what now?
Capitalism is a social system that has its origin in the enslavement of African people and colonization of African and other peoples around the world, but it is a social system that has some basic characteristics, and fundamental to it is that it is a system where a handful of people own and control the means by which human beings produce what we need to survive and grow and live off privately. It's theirs privately, despite the fact that all of what is produced socially. So you got this social production, people starving in Africa, participating in the production that's owned privately by white people, capitalists here. And I say white people, but it goes beyond white people. As you know, China and other forces, China's the biggest economic force in Africa today, external, force in Africa today. So that's capitalism. And it's based on exploitation, the theft of resources, human labor, the value of human labor beyond what human beings need in order just to survive. But when it comes to African people, it takes more than what we need to survive. That's why you can see the stark difference in the lifespan of African people, whether here or and white people, or whether in general terms.
And as an extension of that, the word imperialism.
The word imperialism, that's a really important thing, Zaki, because the word imperialism stems from the word empire. And empire, the British Empire, the European empires that went out and started slavery, right? And through this, they grew capitalism. And so we say that capitalism has its origin in empire and imperialism. That is to say, Europe reaching out and taking and stealing all these resources from other peoples around the world. Of course, now others are joining in this whole imperialist system that exploits the vast majority of the peoples of the world. So that's what empire is. It stems from the term, and the imperialism stems from the term empire, where Europeans and the European empires, England, France, the rest of them, went out and began to capture African people and territories.
In terms of practical programs that the African People's Socialist Party, and the time is just so short, can you cite a couple of instances that concrete programs that the African People's
Socialist
Party?
Well, we have about 52, something like 52 different economic institutions, and they include part of what we are most proud of, actually, then they go back for many, many years, is the Black Power Blueprint Project right here in St. Louis. And St. Louis we have a real concern about St. Louis. And I mean, I know you do. I mean, you've been fighting this battle for a long time now, but I've never seen a kind of concentration of corruption and assault on African people, a comprehensive kind of assault that comes out of so many different ways. But anyway, we have a Black Power Blueprint project here where we've, on 4101 West Florissant, we've taken what was once an abandoned 9,000 square foot, 3-story building and transformed it. It was an eyesore, transformed it in a very short period of time to an Uhuru House, which is our headquarters, and another center. We've demolished 2 commercial buildings that cross the street, and we are now turning that into an event space. And within a very short period of time, with the spring and summer, we'll have an event space that will have commercial gardens, the old boathouse that has been empty for a long period of time on Goodfellow. Yeah, we've taken that property and we are opening up Uhuru Bakery Cafe there to employ people, to provide, foods and whatever for people. And we are creating there also a workforce development center for black people, especially coming out of prison, so that there's a place where they can learn how to run businesses, how to learn things about the food industry and what have you. Those are among the projects that we have.
Real quick, we're going to have to take another break, but Uhuru, you keep saying
Uhuru, that's Swahili for freedom. That was made famous by the Kenyan Land Freedom Army called Mau Mau in Kenya in the 1950s.
All right, we'll have to take another break.
How important are St. Louis Metro passes to the needy? To provide stability and permanent change to the homeless, they need jobs. But how do they get transportation to look for work when they have no money? And when they find a job, how will they get there? Become a part of NLEC's Metro Pass program and help bring enduring change to a life.
I have doctor's appointments that I have to attend, going to seek jobs and putting in applications. I really would like you to understand the importance and the need for this ministry, and anything that you can do to keep this ministry going. Please know that it is an extension of God's love.
Now you can take NLEC TV anywhere as you put the NLEC TV app on your iPhone or mobile device. NLEC TV is an innovative TV station that's on the cutting edge of community service. On NLEC TV, you'll discover wholesome family, community, renewable energy, and inspirational programming. For further information, call 314-436-2424 or go to nlecstl.org. That's nlecstl.org.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti. We only have a couple minutes left, and I'm extending another invite to you for a completion of this conversation because it just goes so quick. You were recently in Oxford, England.
Right.
Why were you there, and what was that?
Well, the Oxford Union, which is one of the most notorious student organizations in the world, one of the most prestigious, organized in one of the center of imperial power at Oxford University, they have these debates on a regular basis. And, Malcolm was there in 1964. So they invited me to come and debate, and they wanted me to debate on the Africa question. Where should there be greater union within Africa or between African people, et cetera. And so it was an extraordinarily successful event. There were 6 of us, 3 on each side of the question. The former Prime Minister, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe was one of the persons. Okay. The former U.S. Ambassador to the Organization of African Unity was one of the persons. And they had some other people who carry some elements of prestige with them, according to the rulers. And so we did extraordinarily well. And in the debate, we won the debate 2-1. And since that time, we have, on 3 different sites, just 3 sites alone, we count more than 1.1 million views of that debate, and we're getting responses from all around the African world.
So for anybody who's listening right now, how can they look at the debate? They
can go to the best source of that is apspuhuru.org.
And on that note, if anybody is interested in becoming involved with the African People's Socialist Party, how would they be able to contact?
They can do the same thing. Go to apspuhuru.org, and or they can come by even better, 4101 West Florissant, right here in St. Louis, and we welcome everybody to come through and participate.
We only got about less than a minute. The question of Venezuela, that's why I have to, we only got 30 seconds.
Venezuela is incredibly important for us as a people because it's part of the response of people breaking free from this empire that created this whole social system. That's why imperialism is so desperate.
Should we believe Trump?
You can't believe Trump. You can't believe America on Venezuela because it's not just Trump. You don't even hear opposition coming from the Democratic Party either around Venezuela.
Okay, then. On that note, we want to thank you for being with us. And again, I'm have to have you back in the seat.
Thank you.
As we we continue the conversation. On that note, everyone, you know you need to belong to an organization. And to that end, you got the African People's Socialist Party, you got the Universal African People's Organization. So get involved. Let's make a difference. Let's have liberation in our lifetime. God bless each and every one of you.